Om Sri Ganeshaya Namaha. Om Sri Saraswatyai Namaha. Om Sri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om Tat Sat. Greetings to all of you. Here I am after a long gap to share with you some interesting teachings on the subject of enlightenment. Enlightenment, which is the crux and aim of any practitioner, any sadhaka who enters the path of spirituality. Though people tend to spend their time on topics which can be better called as religious than spiritual, the ultimate ease in life cannot be achieved by mere religiosity, the religion of masses, of doing some rituals, engaging in some activity, and hoping that one day we would rid of the difficulties we see currently in our lives. So the topic of enlightenment, what is it? How does it feel? How does it appear in our life? What benefits does it have to offer to us? And finally, how to approach and gain this enlightenment for ourselves are very important. We have much literature on this in the Upanishads, in the Buddhist teachings. One of the very few places where we can find this information in a very concise way is from the writings of Hakuin, H-A-K-U-I-N, Hakuin, a great Rinzai Zen teacher from Japan. So, I wanted to share with you this short essay that Hakuin expressed. Hakuin was a great master of Zen, Rinzai Zen, in Japan in the 17th century, who emphasized the importance of this awakening from delusions, awakening from this sleep of our ignorance and come into light, or what is called in Sanskrit gnana, gnosis, as it is called, gnosis or gnana. So I thought I will share this short essay with you people so that those of you who are very keenly pursuing this idea of becoming enlightened, they may get some help. I have two books on this subject. The term is called Kensho in Japanese. Kensho. This is a book, Kensho, The Heart of Zen, a book written by Thomas Cleary. Thomas Cleary, a very, very, very accomplished professor of religious studies. He contributed very, very significantly in translating many of these books on topics of Buddhism. And another book I have is a commentary by Albert Lowe on Hakuin, Heart of Zen. Hakuin on Kensho. So Kensho, or Satori as it is called, is this experience of the ultimate universal nature of the self. It is also called as the true mind in the Buddhist literature, true mind. Because what we are familiar is the mind. But what is the truth of this mind? Means what is the basis, what is the core of this mind that makes up the mind? That is the truth of mind. So this truth of mind is nothing but the clarity of the self. If and when one comes to experience the self, that plenal experience, this ultimate experience, is referred to as Kensho. Kensho. So here I thought I will just read a few pages so we understand how Hakuin sees this Kensho, and it will be of help to us in shaping our approach to our sadhana or practice. That was the intention I had. I'm picking a chapter, small chapter, about 10 pages, but very interesting, very informative, very helpful. So one can structure one's practice keeping these ideas in mind. The essay is called The 4 Ways of Knowing of an Awakened Person. The 4 Ways of Knowing of an Awakened Person. Here it goes. Someone asked Hakuin, are the 3 bodies and 4 ways of knowing inherent, or are they brought into being by our coming to awakening? So here he is referring to the 2 important terms. Are the 3 bodies and 4 ways of knowing inherent, or are they brought into being by our coming to awakening? This is the question asked to Hakuin by someone. Furthermore, are they realized suddenly, all at once, or with practice do they come gradually? So this question comes to most of the seekers. There is a huge amount of debate on this, whether enlightenment is gradual or sudden. So he is combining these few important questions as asked by somebody about the state of awakening in which the 3 bodies come into manifestation, and also 4 ways of knowing that are connected to the man of awakening, a man in awakening, who has awakened from delusion. And then he asks whether this experience is a gradual process, meaning, one day somebody is at 10%, then 20%, 30%, and one day they can reach 100% of knowing. Or it is not that way. whatever one may be doing during their practice time, one day suddenly they reach 100% awakening? This is the question. Hakuin answered by saying that although the three bodies and four ways of knowing are originally inherent and complete in everyone, unless they are brought to light, they cannot be realized. So here Hakuin means to say that the three bodies are inherent in every human being. And the four ways of knowing are originally inherent. We will see what are these four ways of knowing and the three bodies. Okay. The three bodies are the Dharmakaya, the Sambhogakaya, the Nirmanakaya. So this is the terminology in the Buddhism where an awakened man is supposed to be in a state where he manifests these three bodies, just like the way in the Vedantic thinking we say a gross body, a subtle body, and then a causal body. Or we may say a body which is physical and formed by food, a body of the prana, a body of the mind and an intellect, and a body of blissful experience. None of this is the true self, even as per Vedanta. So, in the same way, but not exactly parallel to those thoughts, is the concept of the three kayas, through which a man of awakening expresses Dharmakaya, Sambhogakaya, and Nirmanakaya. We will see what they mean as the text progresses. If you see, the word Dharmakaya is nothing but the Brahman or the self, the absolute self. That is what is called Dharmakaya in the Buddhist literature. And Sambhogakaya and Nirmanakaya, as we will discover when we are reading this. Also, the current focus is not really on explaining all that terminology, but bring focus to what is this enlightenment, okay, and four ways of knowing, etc. So he says, even though they are inherent and complete in everyone, unless they are brought to light, they cannot be realized. After you have become strong through study and practice, and the awakened nature suddenly manifests, you realize the essence of inner reality all at once. He is explaining about the debate on gradual versus sudden. Again, after you have become strong through study and practice. So study and practice are both required components. One has to gain strength based on study and practice. And the awakened nature suddenly manifests. So the awakened nature which manifests through study and practice, you realize the essence of inner reality all at once. So in a way he is distinguishing, or at least showing a gap between awakening versus realizing the inner reality. When one way of knowing is realized, all are realized. So since we said there are four ways of knowing, he says when one way of knowing is realized, remaining three ways of knowing are also realized. However, although you reach the level of Buddhahood suddenly and without passing through steps and degrees, if you do not practice gradually, you cannot reach pure, unobstructed knowing, which is Sarvajnata, Sarvajnata, and ultimate great awakening. So again, when one way of knowing is realized, all are realized. However, although you reach the level of Buddhahood suddenly, means awakening happens suddenly, and without passing through steps and degrees. So the final Buddhahood will dawn upon suddenly. But you reach that level of Buddhahood suddenly and without passing through steps and degrees. So there is nothing like getting 10% Buddhahood or enlightenment and then 20% enlightenment. There is no gradual or step-by-step approach to enlightenment. Even though that is the fact, if you do not practice gradually, you cannot reach pure, unobstructed knowing, which is called Sarvajnata and ultimate great awakening. It is the same idea even in the Vedantic thinking. Shanai Shanai Ruparamed Buddhya Dhrutigruhitaya. With a determined and steadfast mind, practice slowly and slowly. Shanai Shanai Uparamed Buddhya Dhrutigruhitaya. But here, being firm with conviction, Buddhya Dhrutigruhitaya is an important aspect. So with that conviction, you practice gradually and you suddenly land in knowing or awakening. The way of knowing of the great perfect mirror. So here there are 4 different names given for these 4 ways of knowing. The first one is calling about their way of knowing of the great perfect mirror. The great perfect mirror. These words will become a little bit more clear as we read through the paragraphs. Though I don't have equivalent Sanskrit words given here, nor am I able to do any guesswork. Hopefully I will get hold of them when I talk to you next, because these are available in other texts. Okay, so we will come to that. The way of knowing of the great perfect mirror. Someone then asked, what does realization all at once mean? What does realization all at once mean? Hakuin answered that when the discriminating mind is suddenly shattered and the awakened essence immediately appears, the universe is filled with its boundless light. This is called the way of knowing of the great perfect mirror, the pure body of reality, the pure body of reality, Dharmakaya. This is realization all at once. At this time, Alaya means the storehouse, the 8th level of consciousness is transmuted. So what he is saying here is, we all have stored samskaras, the impressions of the past experiences, which in Buddhism circles, literature called Alaya Vijnana. The samskaras which are alive, the samskaras which are live. It is not that the samskaras are dead. Samskaras are always alive so that they can come into manifestation in this birth and in the future births. So, in the Buddhistic thinking, these samskaras or impressions are never treated separate from the consciousness. So they are endowed with consciousness, but have not come into fruition or manifestation yet. So what he is saying here is, Hakuin answered that when the discriminating mind is suddenly shattered, the discriminating means the mind as a habit, as its basic nature, it differentiates every dharma, every object that it encounters. This is a cow, this is a donkey, this is a man, this is a woman, this is hot, this is cold, this is good, this is bad, this is pleasant, this is unpleasant. So this kind of discriminating, classifying is the nature of the mind. So we do not encounter anything in this world without labeling it, without classifying it. But when this discriminating mind is shattered, means it stops discriminating. It simply perceives things but does not classify. The mind perceives things. It has an impression of the object in front, maybe a man or woman, but it does not really jump to say anything about it. So that is what it means by when it stops or when the discriminating mind is shattered. Mind is not going to differentiate anymore. Sometimes it's called preferential also. It doesn't have any preferences. When that happens, and the awakened essence immediately appears. So only when this discriminating mind stops doing that discrimination of experiences, this awakening essence can come into focus. So when that happens, the awakened essence immediately appears. The universe is filled with its boundless light. So this awakened state is of the essence of light, the light of lights. So this light of lights will come into focus, will come into our understanding when the discriminating mind is shattered or stopped or stalled, and this awakened mind appears. Then we experience this as our entire experience filled with light, boundless light. This is called the way of knowing of the great perfect mirror. This is one. The way of knowing of the great perfect mirror. The pure body of reality, the absolute reality, the pure body. Here, in calling it pure, it means that it is not in contact with the mind. Means if you remove all the impressions, all the vibrations of the mind from this pure, from this reality, then it is called pure. A reality without having the aberrations of the mind is a pure reality, absolute reality, what is called as a dharmakaya. So in terms of Vedantic understanding, it is the self, or it is the Brahman, which is always asanga, which is never in contact with the phenomenal manifestation. This is the position of the Advaita Vedanta, the non-dualistic thinking. Non-dual Vedanta says this Atma is asanga, untouched. Only the mind and the manifestation is superimposed, as it were. But never is this consciousness touched by the mind and its manifestations. So that is pure all the time. We are ignorant of it. So coming to know that this self is pure all the time, and only because of our misconception we think that the self is separated into pieces or into parts, that there are many cells and they have impurity in them, owing to the body, mind, etc. So this misconception will automatically be removed once we come to know that the self is always untouched and asanga. This is what is called dharmakaya, or the self, or the Brahman. This is realization all at once. At this time, alaya, the 8th level of consciousness, is transmuted. So these samskaras are changed to be in sync with this transcendental nature of the self. The samskaras which formed earlier, owing to the misconception that the self is working as an individual and inherits the influences and good and bad of the actions. Now that misconception will be totally eliminated, meaning those samskaras or the impressions are transmuted to reflect the true nature of those samskaras as not having a self, because the self is really eternally unchanging and asanga, are not touched by any of these samskaras even. So this is the first level of knowing. Second, the way of knowing equality. So already having known that the self is not influenced by any of the body mind and including the samskaras, now the second way of knowing, it is not really 4 different ways of knowing. It is 4 stages before a complete understanding comes in. So having understood about the fundamental nature of the self, now you still have experience of this differentiation of different objects. So this particular knowing addresses that problem. The way of knowing equanimity, the way of knowing of equality, that all things in the 6 fields of sense, all things in the 6 fields of sense means seeing, hearing, discernment and knowledge, all the things in the field of sense, so all the sense perceptions including the mind, so they make up 6, or your own awakened nature is called knowing equality. That all things in the 6 fields of sense or your own awakened nature is called knowing equality, the fulfilled body of reward, sambodha kaya. So here what is saying is, if I come to experience different objects and then I continue to have an idea that these objects are different from me, then it is not a complete knowledge. So at the second stage, the experience is that, the understanding is that these objects of the 6 sense fields, means eye, nose, ear, tongue and the skin, and the 6th one being the mind itself. All these objects that I come to know, they are your own awakened nature, means they are also of the same essence as what I am in essence, meaning they are also the self. So there are no 2 things, the self and the not self. There is no not self. They are also made of the same essence of the self. They don't have self of their own, but they are made of the same self-essence of which I am. Non-different from me. The objects are non-different from myself. This is called equality, knowledge of equality. This is the second level of knowing. So this is the level of understanding. And first of all, knowing what I am, and then coming to know that the objects are no different from me. So we'll continue with the remaining two in the next segment. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.